President Biden met privately with a select group of scholars last week who raised alarms about the current threat to democracy, both at home and abroad, as first reported by the Washington Post. During the nearly 2-hour-long meeting, historians reportedly warned the president about the rise of totalitarianism around the world. They compared the current moment to the era that preceded the American Civil War, as well as the period before World War II, and called this time the most dangerous to democracy in modern history. For more, let's bring in Wilentz. He is a history professor at Princeton University and was among the historians in that meeting with President Biden. Professor, thanks for being with us. We know you can't get into the details about that meeting, but let's start with the current state of democracy in the United States. What are the biggest threats in your view?
Well, I mean, it's a global threat as well as a domestic threat. I'm an historian, so I think about these things in historical terms. And it seems to me that there have been three real moments of maximum danger for American democracy. And they're always, how to put it, it's never just domestic. The period before the Civil War, obviously the country was falling apart over the issue of slavery. It was going to lead to the slaveholders' rebellion and to the secession. There was also a global conflict going on about the fate of democracy. The revolutions of 1848 going on into the 1870s. There was a real reaction against democracy in Europe. So these were all combined, and it was really a nasty moment, perhaps the worst in our history up till now. The 1930s, global economic collapse, the rise of fascism in Germany and in Italy. Here at home, also great tensions about what the future of American democracy was going to be amidst the coming of the Great Depression. There was actually real threats to American democracy. There was a businessman's coup attempt in 1933, or at least an alleged one that looked pretty nasty. So there were these threats from there as well. And then there's been the present moment, which really goes back a ways, at least until the 90s. And with a real turning point actually in 2000. And what we're seeing is the culmination of that. Where January 6th, we saw January 6th in 2021. We go back to November 22nd, 2000, and there was another mob and was trying to interrupt a presidential election, the counting of presidential votes, there with the actual votes were. It's all a part of the same thing that's culminating right now, and it's really very, very serious. And of course, there's the global aspect of it as well, with what's going on in Russia, what's going on all throughout Europe, with the rise of these totalitarian in some cases, but authoritarian governments.
And I know here in the U.S., you said this kind of goes back a while, but in your mind, did the Trump presidency in any way precipitate a growing movement across the country that potentially increased some of those threats?
No question. It radicalized the radicalization. The radicalization had been going on for some time, but Trump's being there was really took the whole. All American politics actually went off the rails of normality with the Trump presidency. Not only for the disregard for the Constitution or for the ways in which things are normally done in American politics, but also for the attempt to delegitimize basic American institutions, starting with the elections themselves. We see it more recently with his attempts to delegitimize the Justice Department. It really is an attack on fundamentals of American democracy. That wasn't true until now. That wasn't true until Trump, rather. Trump really did that.
And so as we continue to follow the fallout from this FBI search on the former president's home, we have heard a lot of rhetoric and calls, particularly online, for civil war. Is this just talk, bluster, or is there a real chance that something like this could eventually manifest?
Well, Nikole, I don't think it'll be a civil war like the civil war we had in 1861 to 65. There's not going to be a secession, I don't think. It's not going to be like that. The danger to democracy, I think, is much more internal. It has to do with the ways in which, again, the fundamentals of American democracy, which are the vote above all, are being undermined. The systematic ways in which, for example, secretaries of state, local officials, election officials who are into denialism, if you will, the ways in which gerrymandering has changed things. There's a real danger that without a civil war, we'll have a kind of permanent tyranny of the minority in American politics, where one party will really have made it impossible for the other party to attain national power. And that's a real danger. And it seems to be, we're perilously close to that. That's what I'd say.
And so globally, what are the hot spots at this moment where you see totalitarianism on the rise?
Well, I mean, the front lines of all of this is what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, that's the real, testing ground for all of this. The Ukrainians are, in fact, fighting democracy's battles for all of us, in a way. But yes, no question that Putin and what all he stands for is really where the fight is right now, and it's why it's very, very important, I think, for Americans to understand this, but also understand that the 2016 election and Putin's involvement with American politics and his attempt to meddle in American politics, which the Republican Senate, his committee had actually demonstrated. There's a link going on here between what's happening here in terms of the mobilization of a kind of pseudo-populism, but also with Putin's quite deliberate attempts to interfere in American politics in order to destabilize us, in order to make us angry at each other. He succeeded in that in all kinds of ways, and so the two are linked in that way as well.
And so lastly, and very briefly, how does the current threat to democracy, both here in the U.S. and abroad, compare to previous times in history?
Wow, that's a good one, or a tough one. I'd say it's about as dangerous as it's ever been. If only because things are so interlocked now. Things are so, and when you throw in social media and you throw in the ways in which communications have changed, we thought that was all going to be for the better. In fact, it's turned out in many ways to be for the worse. I think that the sense of control, the guardrails, if you will, to democracy, I think are much weaker than they've been, certainly in my lifetime, and perhaps even in modern history. Democracy is a fairly new thing in the world. It hasn't been around all that long in modern history. And so, it's getting tested now. It's always under stress, but it's being tested now as hard as it's ever been.
All right. We'll certainly appreciate your analysis and giving us a lot to think about there. Sean Wilentz, professor of history at Princeton University. Thanks so much.
Well, delight to be here, Nikole.